We're in the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Kristin Giordano, she, her, and hers, and I'm the Partnerships and Community Manager here at AllVoices. Today, I'm very excited to welcome our next guest onto the interview series, Nick Green. He is the co-founder and CEO at Thrive Market. Nick, thanks so much for being here. If you want to share a little bit about yourself for our listeners, including your pronouns, and when you were younger, do you remember how you answered the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, that's a good question. I still ask myself that question. My name is Nick Green. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Thrive Market. My pronouns are he, him. And when I was a little kid, I strangely wanted to be an attorney. I grew up middle class in the Midwest. I was only the second person in my mom's family to go to college. And I sort of aspired to things that had like the veneer of success and education and achievement. Ironically, I became an entrepreneur. So I went in a very different direction from being a lawyer. But that was sort of my strange childhood dream. And maybe it was also that, I saw people in my life at that time who were successful and had done so in like kind of conventional career tracks like that. So my course has been very, very different. And it's been largely because of, kind of the area of social entrepreneurship, which appealed to me in a way that I really never could have imagined until I started my first business. And then after starting that company, which was focused on education, and actually that business being acquired, turning my attention to something even more fundamental in health, which has been, now a nearly decade journey, trying to make healthy and sustainable living accessible to everybody.
I love that. I think that's so important. And also as a former mock trial kid, there was a time in my life where I too thought I was going to be an attorney, and I'm not doing that now as well. I want to kind of dive in a little bit deeper into your passion for social entrepreneurship and how your personal journey has really led you to be the CEO and co-founder of Thrive Market.
Yeah, I mean, the mission of Thrive, as I just alluded, is to make healthy and sustainable living easy, affordable, and accessible to anybody. And that mission is really born from my own personal experience. Again, I grew up, middle class in the Midwest. My mom actually came from a very large Mexican American family, and many of them had dealt with diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and a lot of the lifestyle diseases that we now understand to be associated with diet, but at the time, weren't as well understood. My mom was this like really fascinating kind of crusader for health in our family, driven by her own personal research and kind of unpacking that understanding at a time when it wasn't, like I said, as widely understood. So, I basically saw firsthand her mission for our family to break this generational cycle of lifestyle diseases. She was one of the few in her family that didn't end up with type 2 diabetes, and she attributed it to diet. And she basically set rules in our house around like no sugared cereal, no soda in the fridge. We were that like strange house that like no other kids wanted to go to because none of the good stuff was in the cupboard. But she ultimately was successful, and I'm just so grateful, and I know my siblings are too, that we were able to break that cycle. And she gave us that gift and basically had to do it alone. And when I kind of started looking at the health and wellness space basically 30 years later, it's sort of extraordinary to see how many people are trying to do the same thing that my mom was then. And it's really heartening that like it's no longer something people don't understand. Like the connection between food and health is so clear. The connection between food and the health of our planet and sustainability is so clear. And so, what really got me excited was, one, it's like, conscious living and healthy living is now a mass movement. Two, it's not just about being healthy for your body, but also recognizing that connection between, healthy for your body, healthy for communities, healthy for the planet. And then three, the thing that got us, I think, both excited about an opportunity, but also really a little bit angry about the lack of progress, was that it's still really hard to do those things. and in kind of the same ways as it was for my mom. So even though there are now millions of people and millions of families that want to get healthier, that want to vote with their dollars, that want to support sustainability, you know, if you don't live near a healthy grocery store, you can't be healthy, and 50% of Americans don't. If you can afford the price premiums on organic and regenerative and plant-based foods, which many people can, you can't get there. And then it's still just really intimidating. There's so much misinformation out there. My mom had to do her own research. Now you can go and Google anything, but you're going to find contradictory information. And what's healthy? What can I trust? Where should I go? So, Thrive Market is all about creating a platform where anybody can come, and like the products are affordable. Our membership allows us to sell them at discounted prices. The products are vetted, where Whole Foods might have 40,000 products. We've screened that down to the 5,000 best-selling, highest quality natural organic products. And then we also have a whole experience that's just purpose-built for making healthy and sustainable living easy. So that's content, it's personalization, it's tagging every product by more than 90 different metadata categories, so that if you're keto and your spouse is plant-based and the child has a nut allergy, you click, and everything filters down. So, very long answer to your question, but it was a very personal journey. And it was, spurred and inspired by my own family, but also this recognition that, hey, like it's still really hard, even 30 years later, for people to do this. And one of the most exciting things to me about the progress we've made so far is that we really are making it more accessible. And you see that in the demographics of our member base. So, 50% are in the Midwest or the Southeast. 40% have a household income under $100,000. So, geographically, socioeconomically, even from an age standpoint, we have as many members over the age of 55 as under the age of 35. And so we really are, broadening this access. And then, I won't go into this here, but we maybe get into it in other parts of the interview, but trying to do so much too on the back end to make sure, it's not just middle America, but also people that are, really, really underserved. So we give free memberships to low-income families, for example, and to first responders, and to military veterans. And then we've raised millions of dollars to actually fund the shopping budgets of those GIVES members on site. So really proud of the progress that we've made. I think my mom is proud too.
Yes.
Maybe even more so than if I'd become an attorney. And also recognize we got a long way to go. We've impacted more than 1 million paid members and many GIVES members, but there's 125 million households in America. And we really want to see this accessible to everybody.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing your personal journey to this work. I think that is really impactful, and I can obviously see that this is something that you are passionate about, and I'm sure that people who join the Thrive Market team are also either, also frustrated with the lack of progress. They're really purpose-driven, and they are committed to making a healthy lifestyle, accessible for their community and for themselves, for their families too. I want to ask your perspective as the chief executive, officer at the company. What do you think the unique role of the CEO is, particularly in helping to build a really intentional internal kind of company culture at Thrive Market? And how you see this responsibility manifesting throughout other leaders at the organization too?
It's a really great question. And, I feel like I almost have a new job every year, because as the business grows and as we both expand our offerings and, expand our scope strategically and look further out into the future and work to innovate, there's what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis just changes. And then, strategically, just as we've scaled, like what, the things that I can actually have impact on really changed. So like early on in the business, it was like all hands on deck. My sleeves were rolled up. I was like, literally at the earliest days, packing boxes that we were shipping out. And, really through like the first 4 or 5 years was still very involved with, the kind of like strategy and execution of specific initiatives. What I noticed in those first few years, and what's become basically my primary focus over the last few years, is our greatest strength really is our talent, and the mission is a magnet for talent. To your point, we attract people that really care about what we're doing, that are looking for a career that is grounded in purpose, that is aligned with their values. Just as our members want to vote with their dollars, I think our employees are voting with their time in terms of how they want to contribute to making a better world and to living up for health and for sustainability and for social causes. Um, and that creates a really powerful incentive to work with a different level of focus, to work with a different kind of longer timeline. And I think for the most talented people today, they're looking for that. And so it's actually enabled us, I think, at each stage of our business to punch above our weight, to bring in extraordinary people. And so the net effect of that is, as we've scaled, my personal ability to just do things directly has gone down anyway. But then also, I'm just surrounded by all these incredibly talented people who are so much better than I ever was at all the things that they do. And it really has shifted my role to be, a facilitator. And it's interesting because on our platform, we really think about ourselves as facilitating and empowering our members to live their healthy lifestyle, right? And whatever that means. That's why we tag every product across all these different values. If you care about regenerative agriculture, you can do that. If you care about animal cruelty, you can focus there. If you care about both of those things and you're trying to do a keto lifestyle, you can balance those. And it's really been the same lens with our employees. Like, we want to empower them and create a culture where they feel real ownership, where they see how their work connects to the mission, where they see how what we're doing in the short term connects to the long term. And so a lot of my role is like context creation. It's making sure that the right stories are getting told. It's making sure that people see that that connective fiber between day-to-day work and the long-term vision. And it's also being like a real sort of defender of the culture and the mission. I think one of the greatest challenges as you scale, especially as you scale fast, is that growth can really dilute some of that stuff. And it can force you to be focused just with kind of, keeping the whole machine assembled, versus like really stepping back and looking and seeing, is this still doing the things that we want it to do? So I know that sounds a little bit soft. And at first it was really hard for me to let go of the, like, I'm driving this specific project. Right. But now it really is me looking and seeing, how can we inspire, motivate, respond to, engage in really constructive dialogues with our employees, because they have the answers, right? They also have the questions, which, we've got to be responsive to. But really, the answers are out there in the org for what we should be doing, how we can create value for our members, how we can better serve our mission. And my role is really just to tap into that, to harness it.
Absolutely. You mentioned kind of your role as a facilitator and defender of the culture. And I think part of being a really great facilitator as well is really actively listening. And you mentioned the questions as well as the answers are out there as well. I'm sure as your team continues to grow, and you're continuing to kind of bring on people that are really passionate about this mission-driven work, folks have lots of opinions that are both positive, negative, constructive, everything in between. How do you see employee feedback management as a really important tool to proactively build that culture of listening? And how do you see that culture really manifesting across the organization at large?
That is a great question and a really, really big one. And I think, it starts with really clear communication from the leaders of the company. First, the founders, if they're involved day to day, then the executive team, and then anyone that's managing people, that says in no uncertain terms, we are here to listen, we're here to serve. And that alone of just, it is safe to voice your feedback, to share concerns, and that we understand that there's insight that comes from the organization that, particularly as the business is scaled, like simply can't come from up top. And so I think really impressing on people that we recognize that value and that we are committed to listening and that we're here to serve is the starting point. But that's also not enough. You have to actually then create the conduits or create the channels, because there's a natural resistance to share, especially negative feedback, with people in positions of authority or perceived power, even if they're saying they want it. And so we really try to say, how can we create mechanisms that just make it easy, right? The same way we're trying to make healthy living easy for our members, how do we make it really easy for our employees to be really clear with us about, what the good, the bad, and the ugly of what we are or aren't doing right. So, one way we've done that is AllVoices, which has been an extraordinary tool. We also do it with, I actually do a monthly AMA, Ask Me Anything, at our All Hands. So during the course of the month, we collect questions that people will submit. They can submit them anonymously. and then I'll run through them on the all hands. We do weekly, what we call weekly business reviews, where we're really transparent about what's going on in the business. Anyone can attend those weekly business reviews, and anyone can ask questions, which then I'll respond to, or other leaders will respond to. And then within each of the teams, we have each of our managers doing similar kind of exercises at their team level, so it kind of cascades all the way down. But it's ongoing work, and it's something that we've gotten a lot better at, I think, as we scaled, and we had to get a lot better at, because unless you continue to reinforce not only the willingness and the kind of philosophy and the attitude, but also those like conduits, and here's the way to do it, and then being responsive when you get those questions, it's very easy to backslide into people feeling like they can't speak up.
Absolutely. It sounds like there is definitely a holistic and strategic perspective on how you kind of create those channels for active listening, responding, taking action as well, because at the end of the day, meeting employees where they are is so important. Not everyone is going to feel comfortable speaking up in an all hands, or, whatever experiences they've had before with feedback come with them as well, even a fantastic work environment too. I want to kind of also touch on feedback that is positive, and also in terms of innovation. We've seen so much innovation in an extraordinarily challenging past couple of years to come. But one of the bright spots that leaders have been talking about is an opportunity to redesign systems, really lean into flipping the people space on its head. Can you share from your perspective just innovation that you've seen that you're really excited by at the organization as well?
Yeah, I mean, specifically with feedback?
Yeah, specifically with feedback, or just in general, how you've had the opportunity to innovate within the people space before.
Yeah, I mean, most of the innovation honestly comes from having those conduits open and then getting feedback on what people care about, right? And I think there's been a lot of challenges the last couple of years with the pandemic in terms of like, how do you create culture, right? How do you translate what we were doing in person with different workflows and processes and meetings and all of that stuff into a virtual realm? What is the future of the office going to look like? How much of it's going to be virtual? Where does it end up being in person? And all of these questions have basically prompted us to go searching for answers and to be more innovative. The approach that we tended to take on all of these, I call it test and learn, and it's basically just rapid iteration. So like sometimes we'll actually have people will give feedback and they have the answer in mind. We'll start with that as a starting point. Sometimes they don't have an answer in mind, so we pick an answer that we think is the right starting point. We start there, but we never come with the assumption that like we've got the final answer in one of those situations. We come with the assumption that, hey, this is a starting point, and then we're going to test and learn and iterate. So like I think one of the areas we're innovating the most right now is on like just meetings and process, and how do we like work together well as a team in a largely digital and remote world. We're getting better at Slack. We're shifting our meeting cadences. We're creating more discipline around how meetings are held. We're creating mechanisms within meetings to make sure that people actually speak up, which is a harder thing to do when you can kind of like hide behind the Zoom box. So I'd say that's one area of innovation. I think another area of innovation that we've thought a lot about is benefits and kind of perks. So like we had this amazing office space that we were in for 5 years prior to the pandemic. We had, amazing fried snacks. We had lunch, healthy organic lunch served every single day. We had a meditation and like chill out room where we would hold meditation and yoga classes. Yeah, we had a full little gym right there in the office. And these were like amazing kind of perks for employees, which all of a sudden nobody could access when the pandemic started. So, we've shifted and looked at, and this was also geared by what people were asking about, but realized that the pandemic was having a mental health toll on people. And so we actually launched a tool and a platform, resources for our employees to get mental health counseling and like really make that affordable, make it easy. We started to really lean into health benefits as people became just more health conscious, and some had to access the medical system. And so that was things like the amount of the premiums that we're covering on health, on medical benefits. We also noticed during the pandemic, and part of this is also our business maturing, and like as we've hired more people that are at the stage of having families, that, we just really need to focus on creating benefits that aren't just for our individual employees, but also for their families. And that's been it's been timely for me. I have 2 kids and one on the way. And so I'm thinking about it for a very personal lens as well. And like one of the things we're doing this year is focusing on creating a benefit for people that families that want to adopt. And whether it's same-sex couples for whom that's the primary option, or people have already had kids and are thinking about adoption, but there's different barriers. There's so many situations where adoption can be a really beautiful thing. And today, or historically, companies like ours who've tried to be really progressive on things like family planning benefits and fertility treatments haven't necessarily provided similar benefits for adoption. So that's something I'm really passionate about and excited about. So I don't want to act like we've got all the answers or we've done everything, but we've done a number of things. And again, a lot of this has been driven and inspired by getting that feedback from our employees. Like the adoption thing came up because we actually had a same-sex couple that said, "Hey, we're wanting to adopt. Like, has Thrive ever thought about this?" We're like, "Actually, we haven't, and we really should be." But thank you for bringing that up. And it's really cool when things like that can happen, and one person speaking up can then have a great cascading effect for so many other people that would want the same thing, but maybe didn't say something.
I mean, all the examples you provided in terms of well-being and mental health resources and family forming benefits make a huge impact on people's lives for years to come. So I think that it's really required to celebrate the progress that has been made and the changes and the continuing kind of listening that's happening as well, to make sure you're meeting folks where they are, no matter where they are in their life journey, as well as career journey at Thrive Market too. I know we talked about kind of innovation internally in the people space and making sure that the team feels seen and heard. But I know that you're also, in terms of innovation, kind of launching for businesses for Thrive Market for Business. Can you tell us a little bit more about the kind of concept and why this is a really important service? Because I believe this is the first time that Thrive Market is opening up for businesses, right?
Yeah, I'm excited that you mentioned that, because it's one of the areas in our business that I'm most sort of exuberant about right now, and it ties into that, like that theme that I was talking about a second ago of the landscape of benefits and perks is really changing. There was all these things that so many companies did for their people that were basically in a physical office space, and you take that away or have it be something where now it's 1 or 2 days a week. And there's many businesses that are, and ours included, that are likely never going back to a 5 days a week. Everyone's in the office 100% of the time. And so, I think there's a question that people teams, HR teams are asking themselves of, all right, what is the analog to some of these in-office benefits that really were meaningful for our employees in a post-COVID, more digital, remote, hybrid workplace? And we answered that question first for ourselves, right? All right, we used to provide lunch. What can we do? Well, hey, we happen to have a platform that has like amazing food and ingredients and shopping lists and recipes and frozen meals. Cool. We're going to be like, we were already in a position to provide that kind of thing for our employees. And then we also ended up having other businesses just like organically reaching out to us, sort of asking the same thing, right? They were like, "Hey, we want to do employee recognition. Could we like send a box of organic biodynamic wine that you guys have to an employee who's like employee of the week? We want to do an event online. Could we set something up where we like all get the same ingredients and we cook a recipe together?" We're like, "Sure." And then a lot of them were saying, we want a benefit that allows our people to really like stay healthy, to have the same kind of perk of like getting snacks in the office or getting a lunch, but also have more choice, because when you're in an office, you basically get the snacks that are there on the shelf. And what we realized is we actually have something that can be much, much more powerful than in-office snacks in a remote environment, which is a curated catalog of over 5,000 products that people can then come in, personalize to their own needs, and basically create their own personalized snack aisle that also is healthy and sustainable and aligned with their values. So we came up with this idea of Thrive Market for Business. And the basic idea is, allow businesses to provide Thrive Market as a benefit to their employees. So, the company can pay for the membership. It's $5 a month, so it's not super expensive. And then they can add on to that with what we call Thrive Cash, which is like our own platform currency that they can fund into their employees' accounts on a monthly basis. And they can do it at whatever level they want. But that just creates that extra incentive for people to get in and bake the healthy habit, use it each month, and know that they're not only saving the up to 30% off of retail that you can save just as a Thrive Market member, but also getting this extra boost there where like you get an extra $25 off your a monthly order. And some employers are doing even more than that. So that's the program. It's also unique in that we've been enabling employers to only basically pay for the Thrive Cash that gets used. Like one of the things we don't want to do is be one of those benefits where it's like you end up paying a bunch for the service, but then you're not actually getting the full value from the platform.
Right.
We've really tried to align it with the needs of businesses. And we're very early on in the process. So we're like, working with first few dozen customers, getting lots of feedback. I mentioned testing and iterating before. We're in that stage. And I'm just really excited now to have this as one more way that we can reach more people, make healthy living more accessible, and hopefully fill this void that is being left in the remote world for a lot of these businesses of, how do we keep our employees healthy, give them great snacks, give them great meals, but do it, in a way that, isn't tied to the office.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think offering this kind of option for employers also, as you said at the beginning, too, really impacts the employee experience with employee retention, engagement, and really attracting folks who are really passionate about having this as an option as well. So it's definitely a win-win situation for folks. Can you dive a little bit deeper into the online membership benefits? What can people expect for Thrive Market for Business? What does that include?
Yeah, I mean, the benefits for the employee is the same benefits that a member on Thrive Market has as a consumer. Now, it's even better for them in the sense that they don't have to pay for the membership, right? One. And then two, they get this Thrive Cash dropped into their account every single month. So, the way Thrive Market works, by charging a membership, we're able to offer the products at very discounted prices. We also have over a quarter of our sales coming from our own brand of products, which are under the Thrive Market brand. We're up leveling quality in all of those, doing really innovative sourcing, leaning heavily into regenerative. It's not your typical private label program where we're copying products. It's actually like really new and innovative products. And on those ones, we deliver even more discount. So, the typical member, just in terms of the financial benefit of the membership, they make back the membership fee in about 2 purchases, save up to 30% per order. So that's one of the ways that we make healthy and sustainable living much more accessible. So the employees who get a Thrive Market for business membership get that benefit without paying for the membership, which is huge. They also get then the Thrive Cash on top of that. And depending on how much the employer ends up funding. And then, the biggest barrier that we see to getting healthy is just that it can be really hard and intimidating. Where do I start? Like, what can I trust? How do I know this product's actually healthy? Can I trust that this was sourced in an ethical way? Mm-hmm. And that's actually the place that I think we are most unique. Yes, it's great to get these like amazing products at great prices. We're like bringing like the ultra premium health food store to anybody, anywhere. That's awesome. But it's also something to be able to use technology to really personalize it. And really make it so that you can outsource your trust to us. Like we think about that idea a lot of like, that overwhelming experience of going into the grocery store and having to read labels, right? Of having to like walk through every aisle and find which things are the right products for you. Versus on Thrive Market, you come on, all the food is non-GMO. That all the non-food is, basically we have a 500 never ingredients list to make sure that you're never being exposed to hormone blockers or disruptors. Never having exposure to things that aren't ethically sourced. So we draw all these like hard lines on things that we don't do. And then we again tag all the products across all these different dimensions so that if what you care about is supporting female entrepreneurs, you can buy from female-owned businesses. If it's BIPOC entrepreneurs, you can use that filter. We have more than 55 brands, about 10% of our catalog that are founded by BIPOC founders. Or it's, like I said, regenerative or animal cruelty. So, that I think is actually like the next level in terms of how we create value for our members, is not just having amazing products at really great prices, but making it super easy to live your values, vote with your dollars, and be part of this community that's impacting those things at real scale. And one of the things that gets me super excited is that we now have over a quarter of our members that are coming in new, actually referred by existing members, which just tells us like people are talking about it because they love it. And our hope is that as we launch and expand Thrive Market for Business, that's going to be one more way that we bring in more members. But then those members can also bring in members who come in directly, or tell their employer like, hey, this would be a great benefit for you, or for us at our company, let's do that. So super super excited for how that can scale out. And we're getting just amazing reception from HR and people leaders across different companies, that suggests it's going to be something that's really valuable.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want it to be more easy to live your values and really contribute to your community as well? I mean, it sounds like an incredible kind of offer to businesses, and really a way to engage folks that they weren't before, and making it easier for your employees to really lean into what they care about as well. Nick, I want to ask from your perspective too, what you think based on, the last 2 years and all of your experience, what is a must-have people leaders need to incorporate in their strategy to really be successful in the future, be competitive, and really create these thriving companies with mission-driven work?
Of course, it's Thrive Market for Business and AllVoices. Those are the two things you have to have. No, I think it goes back to kind of the original topic we were unpacking, which is listening and really being responsive to your employees. And I think, look, like every company is different. Different employee bases are different. We have almost 1,000 employees. 70% of them are in our fulfillment centers, right? These are hourly workers. And so what we need as a company may be very different than a software company that has, most of their employees as engineers in San Francisco. So I hesitate to say there's like one thing. I think that, there's a definite theme around benefits that are health and wellness oriented, that really are going to around the whole person, right? Not just, medical, but also like, how do I prevent having medical issues? How do I think about my values and voting with my dollars? And I think, Thrive Market for Business and other things can help address that. But at a really fundamental level, I think that the most important thing for HR leaders and for leaders in general, and especially executives and CEOs and founders, is to listen to your people. And tools like AllVoices are part of that. And then there's a bunch of other things like that I alluded to before, that that any leader can do to open up those conduits and get the feedback. And then of course the critical thing is, do you act on it? And I think one of the things that prevents a lot of businesses and leaders from acting as decisively as they should is that fear of like getting it wrong, or not sort of having the perfect solution, or oh my gosh, people want this, but we can't afford to do that, so I'm not going to do anything. And again, that's where I go back to this like test and learn approach, and and doing it incrementally. Like we're very transparent at Thrive about what we can and can't provide at this stage in our business. And there are definitely some benefits we would love to do, but like we're just not in a financial position to do them at our current stage. And I think being transparent with employees about why we're doing this now and where we want to get to eventually can be really, really powerful. And it's really appreciated to just have that candor. And the most important thing is taking that first step, trying something, and then you iterate. And for us, there's been so many programs we've done that today they're totally different than they were a year ago or 2 years ago. And it's but taking that first step was critical to getting where we are.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you. Active listening, accountability, transparency, effective communication. It's an ongoing process. These are not check the box things that people leaders can just do and never touch again. And the reality is that talent and your employees, if they're not finding it at your company, it's somewhere else, like at Thrive Market and other employers of choice out there as well. Nick, is there anything?
One other thing I want to mention. Sorry to interrupt, but it relates to this theme, and it's something I wanted to say both about the way we work with our member community and with our employees. A lot of times we think about benefits or like what you can do for your people or your customers as something that we give them. But one of the things we found is also really powerful is a lot of like people want to be generous, like they want to give. And
Yeah.
sometimes the greatest thing you can give them is the ability to give and to be generous. So just to cite an example of that, like one of the things that we consistently see mentioned in our member renewal survey is the fact that they're able to donate a portion of their savings at checkout to the shopping budgets of our Gives members. We've raised millions of dollars this way. We have really high donated checkout rates. And you would think like, oh my gosh, this is them giving away their savings. Like, why would that be a benefit? But it really is, because we're human, right? It's not just about dollars and cents. It's about feeling good and feeling part of something that matters. And so just to share an analog to that on the employee side, we have a Thriver Help Fund, which is basically a fund that is dedicated to providing financial assistance for Thrivers that fall in a hard time. Whether that's an issue of a family health crisis, or it is a financial crisis, right? That someone's dealing with. Money doesn't solve anything, but having that little cushion can be really helpful. And we started with like my co-founders and I donating to the fund itself. Some of our executives donate to the funds in significant ways, and then we allow our employees to donate to that fund. Yeah. And so that's an example of something where like Thrive Market didn't put anything into the fund. It was all just individual generosity, starting with leaders, but really extending to our employees, that is having an impact and that is creating a benefit that I think is really powerful and comes from the generosity of the employees themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you shared that example because it's another great way of you're making it super easy for people to live their values. People do want to give and make a difference and feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves as well. So really operationalizing it and offering that opportunity to help folks is really important.
Exactly.
Is there anything, Nick, that I didn't ask that you want to share with folks who are listening, or maybe 1 to 2 like key takeaways you want to underscore, bold, highlight, so folks can bring it with them after hearing our conversation here today?
No, that was the one that I didn't really get to touch on, but love the territory that we covered. I mean, this is stuff that we're so passionate about at Thrive Market, and really just grateful that to you guys that you're creating this forum for sharing ideas with other people leaders, and really grateful for tools like AllVoices that enable like all of this to happen. Because again, all of these things start with being responsive and listening to employees. So, I'd say my big themes to leave listeners with are: 1, Thrive Market for Business. Like we'd love to get you guys on that. If you're a people leader, thinking about the right next generation benefits for your employees, like please reach out to us. We're so excited about the program. And then 2, we want to collaborate with other like-minded businesses that are also thinking about these issues. So I've shared some of the things that we're doing, but my email is nick@thrivemarket.com. If there are other people, people leaders, founders, executives who are listening to this that have ideas or want to share them, we're also really eager to sort of cross-pollinate. And also, if you want to reach out on Thrive Market for Business, you can email forbusiness@thrivemarket.com, and we'll get right with you to talk about what that can be and set up a meeting with your people team.
Awesome. Well, Nick Green, thank you so much for joining me on Reimagining Company Culture this afternoon. And as a reminder for folks who are listening, at AllVoices, we really believe in employee feedback management as a requirement for the company to succeed overall. Have a great rest of your afternoon, everyone.